Welcome, wanderers of the shadowed vale, to Throne of Nightmares, where the ghosts of the forgotten rise not with screams, but with the slow, inexorable creep of regret. I am your host, the keeper of cursed echoes, and tonight we descend into the mist-choked veins of the Ozark Mountains. Picture it, the year is 1871, and the air hangs heavy with the scent of damp pine and unearthed clay, where the hills fold upon themselves like the pleats of a funeral shroud. The Ozarks, those ancient, unyielding sentinels of stone and shadow, guard secrets deeper than their limestone caverns, secrets that whisper through the leaves and stain the soil with the iron tang of old blood. But tonight, we do not chase phantoms of the imagination. No, we unearth a tale so deliberately buried that even the earth itself seems complicit in its silence. It is the story of the Kincaid brothers, Solomon and Jeremiah, two sons of the soil whose blood feud ignited a conflagration that consumed not just flesh, but the very memory of a place. 14 souls snuffed out in the span of a single cursed autumn week. A massacre so methodical, so laced with ritual that it defies the crude hand of mere madness. And yet, for nearly a century, it slumbered in oblivion, erased by the trembling hands of those who witnessed its horror. Imagine, if you will, the hush that falls over a hollow at twilight. The sun bleeds orange into the ridges, painting the bark of black walnut trees in hues of rust and regret. Somewhere, a creek murmurs secrets over smooth-worn stones, its voice a lullaby for the dead. This is the land of the Kincaids, Madison County, Arkansas, where the post-war world still reeks of gunpowder and broken oaths. The Civil War's scars linger here like open wounds, Union blue clashing with Confederate gray in the underbrush, leaving behind men hollowed out, their eyes reflecting not victory, but the void of what they had done to survive. Our tale begins with Obadiah Kincaid, a patriarch forged in the fires of frontier hardship. He came to these hills in the 1830s, when the Cherokee Trail still echoed with the ghosts of the Trail of Tears, and claimed 800 acres from the government's grudging hand. Obadiah was no saint, his hands were calloused from plow and rifle alike, his faith a brittle thing hammered on the anvil of isolation. By 1866, with the war's embers still smouldering, he lay dying in a featherbed stained with laudanum dreams. To his 4 sons he divided his legacy. The eldest, Solomon, took 300 acres of the ridge's stern face, rocky soil that mocked the plow with its unyielding stone. Jeremiah, the second-born, claimed 175 acres in the valley's cradle, where a limestone cave yawned like a maw and a spring bubbled eternal, sweet as forbidden knowledge. But land, my dears, is never just dirt and deed. It is vein and sinew, pulsing with the grudges of those who till it. Solomon, broad-shouldered and brooding, with eyes like chipped flint, saw in his brother's inheritance not bounty but theft. Jeremiah, lean and secretive, with a gaze that darted like a fox in moonlight, guarded his hollow with a fervor that bordered on the profane. Whispers began to circulate through the clapboard churches and crossroads taverns, of water diverted in the dead of night, of wagons creaking under loads unseen, of lights flickering from the cave's throat like the eyes of something awakening. As the summer of 1871 withered under a merciless drought, the brothers' rift widened into a chasm. Crops failed like prayers unanswered. The spring's flow dwindled to a trickle, and blame festered like a boil lanced too late. Solomon patrolled his boundaries with a shotgun slung low, his shadow stretching long and accusatory. Jeremiah vanished into his cavern for days, emerging hollow-cheeked, his hands caked in chalky dust that smelled faintly of sulfur and decay. The air grew thick with unspoken curses, the kind that cling to the skin like river mud. And then, on the 7th of October, the veil tore. Solomon was last seen alive, his lantern swinging wild as he stormed toward the valley, Bible in one hand, blade in the other. 4 days later, the hollows awoke to screams not of the living, but of the wind carrying echoes from the grave. Trapper Jacob Miller stumbled upon Solomon's homestead, a tableau of domestic horror, bodies arranged as if for supper, throats open with surgical grace. Rebecca Kincaid, Solomon's wife of 15 years, lay at the table, her needlework still in her lap. eyes staring at a half-mended quilt as if begging the threads to weave her back to life. Their 5 children, ages 3 to 12, posed in eternal innocence, the eldest boy with his slate in hand, chalk-dusted fingers curled as if solving an unsolvable sum, the littlest girl clutching a cornhusk doll, its button eyes sewn with the same precision that severed her breath. Solomon himself, found in the smokehouse, slumped against hogsheads of salted pork, his own throat bearing the mark of his handiwork, a final indictment scrawled in blood on the wall. The abomination claims its due, but it was the letters, tucked into Rebecca's apron, sealed with wax the color of dried gore, that chilled the marrow. In them, Solomon raged against Jeremiah, accusing him of desecrations in the cave rituals that mocked the Almighty, pacts with shadows older than the hills, a harvest not of corn, but of souls. Word spread like fever through the ridges. Sheriff William Hargrove, a man whose mustache hid lips too often curled in skepticism, rallied a posse under a sky bruised purple with storm. Among them rode Dr. Thomas Burnett, circuit healer and war-scarred surgeon. His satchel heavy with sutures and secrets, they crested the ridge to Jeremiah's valley, and there, the second horror unfolded. Flames licked the eaves of the cabin, a pyre fed by greed or guilt. Inside, Jeremiah's wife and 2 young ones lay charred but unburned in their vitals, throats slit in mirror to their kin across the hollow. Jeremiah himself staggered from the tree line, gut shot and raving, his eyes wild as a cornered boar's. He lived 3 days under guard, long enough to whisper of evidence buried beneath the elder oak, a sentinel tree whose branches clawed the sky like arthritic fingers. Then, with a vial of laudanum pressed to his lips, he slipped away, his final breath a hiss. The cave, it hungers still. What followed was not justice but erasure. At White Oak Church, 12 men, preacher, judge, farmer, and kin, convened by lantern light. They swore an oath on Bibles worn thin by false vows the deaths would be logged as tragic accidents, twin fires born of faulty chimneys and careless hands. No mention of blades or letters or the cave's profane glow. The records were altered, the bodies shoveled into unmarked plots, the cave blasted shut with black powder that echoed like thunder from the underworld. Why, you ask? Fear. My shadowed listeners. Fear of what the world might think of their godly hollows, fear of the darkness that nested in their own breasts. For in the Kincaid's blood ran the war's poison, Union scouts who had raised Confederate holds, leaving widows to keen and children to starve, and deeper still, rumors of the cave not mere moonshine, but something ancient, stirred by Jeremiah's delving. Yet the earth remembers. In 1967, researcher Evelyn Hawthorne unearthed Burnett's journals from a flooded basement in the Madison County Historical Society. Pages warped by time, ink bleeding like wounds reopened. What she pieced together was no mere feud, but a symphony of the damned. 23 sets of remains clawed from beneath the elder oak, bones dated from 1860 to 71, dismembered with the same ritual care. The cave, when probed, yielded echoes of screams trapped in stone. Tonight, we walk that ground. Feel the chill seep into your bones. Hear the whip-paw wills call as a dirge for the silenced. For in the Ozarks, the past does not die, it festers, waiting for fools like us to dig too deep. Stay with me as we descend into the hollows, where the Kincaid's ghosts still sharpen their blades on the whetstone of regret. The throne awaits, and it hungers. Let us linger here a moment, in the cradle of the catastrophe, before the blades fall. Breathe in the Ozarks of 1871, air thick as molasses, laced with the sweet rot of fallen persimmons and the acrid bite of wood smoke from hearths that never quite warmed the soul. The Kincaid land sprawled like a wounded beast across Madison County's flanks, 800 acres clawed from the wilderness by Obadiah's unyielding will. He was a man of the old breed, born in the Carolinas amid the Revolution's dying gasps, his youth spent dodging Creek arrows and British lead. The Ozarks called to him in 1837, a siren song of free grants and untamed rivers, but the price was the displacement of the Osage and Cherokee, their trails trampled under his boots. Obadiah built his cabin from chestnut logs hewn by his own axe. its chinking stuffed with moss that whispered of older dwellers. 5 children he sired with Eliza, a frail wisp from Tennessee whose eyes held the blue of mountain forget-me-nots. But war came calling in 61, tearing at the family's seams. Obadiah, too grizzled for the fray, sent his sons to the Union cause, Solomon and Jeremiah foremost, their boyish frames hardening in the crucible of bushwhacker ambushes and foraging raids. They returned in 65 as specters of themselves, Solomon, 28, with a limp from a mini-ball that grazed his thigh at Pea Ridge, Jeremiah, 26, unscathed in body but haunted in gaze, his fingers twitching as if still tracing maps of enemy camps. Eliza did not live to see their homecoming. Consumption claimed her in 64, her grave a simple mound under a wild azalea that bloomed defiant pink each spring. Obadiah followed 2 years hence, his last breath rattling like gravel in a tin cup. On his deathbed, amid the scent of liniment and lye soap, he summoned his sons. The parlor was dim, lit by tallow candles that spat shadows across walls, papered in newsprint yellowed with age. "The land is your blood," he wheezed, his voice a rasp honed by decades of commands. "Divide it square, or let it divide you." The division was etched on a scrap of vellum, witnessed by preacher Elias Thorne, whose sermons thundered against the sins of covetousness. Solomon, as eldest, claimed the ridge, top-spread 300 acres of stubborn clay and outcrop, where sycamores leaned like wary sentinels over fields that yielded corn only after supplication to indifferent skies. His cabin perched there, a sturdy box of squared timbers, its roof thatched with river cane. Rebecca, his bride since of 59, had borne him 5, Amos 12, with his father's flinty stare, Miriam 10, who sang psalms to the chickens, twins Levi and Ruth 8, forever chasing fireflies, and little Esther 3, whose laughter was the hollow's sole light. Jeremiah's lot lay in the valley below, a shadowed fold where the creek sang lullabies over pebbles polished by Yunes, 175 acres rich with hickory and pawpaw groves, but its jewel was the cave, a yawning fissure in the limestone cliff, its mouth framed by ferns that dripped like tears. A spring issued from its depths, clear as crystal and ceaseless, feeding a trough where livestock drank without thirst's complaint. Jeremiah's cabin nestled against the hill, half buried in ivy that climbed its walls like veins. His wife, Mary, was a quiet force from Illinois, her hands deft at quilting and her voice soft as cornbread steam. Their children Josiah 6, with Jeremiah's darting eyes, and baby Hannah 2, who cooed at the cave's echoes. At first, the brothers' bond held, forged in foxholes and fraternal jests. They shared harvest suppers under the harvest moon, plates heaped with venison and johnny cake, stories of war's absurdities chasing away the night's chill. Solomon would clap Jeremiah's shoulder, his laugh booming like thunder over the ridge. With the devil's own luck to be breathing still, he'd say, clinking tin cups of applejack. Jeremiah would nod, his smile thin, eyes flicking to the cave as if it called his name. But the seeds of rupture were sown in the drought of a 70, when rains withheld their grace and the creek shrank to a vein. Solomon's fields cracked like parched lips, his well running dry by July. He traced the fault to the valley, a subtle dam of stones and clay at Jeremiah's spring, diverting flow to fatten his brother's pastures. Thievery cloaked in kinship, Solomon muttered to Rebecca one eve as she mended his shirt by the hearth's glow. Her needle paused, silver in firelight. "Is your blood, Sol? Blood don't lie." It did, though, or twisted at least. By spring, a 71, Solomon's patrols began. Midnight vigils with lantern and long rifle, boots crunching leaves like brittle bones. He spied wagons rumbling to Jeremiah's door under cover of cloud, laden with crates that clinked like chained secrets. Laborers, strangers with hollow cheeks and averted eyes, hauled burdens into the cave, their grunts echoing off the walls. Lights flickered from within, not lantern-steady, but erratic, pulsing like a heartbeat in distress. Sulphur's tang wafted on the breeze, mingling with the cave's damp exhalation, a breath that carried undertones of char and copper. Blood, perhaps, or something fouler. Rebecca pleaded in whispers, her hands cool on his fevered brow. The war broke something in you both. Let the preacher mediate. But Solomon's dreams turned virulent visions of the cave as a womb inverted, birthing abominations with Jeremiah's face, pale limbs writhing, mouths gaping in silent accusation. He scrawled letters by candle flame, pages crammed with scripture mangled by paranoia, Ezekiel's dry bones reassembled not by God, but by profane hands, the mark of Cain etched not on flesh but in stone. Jeremiah, for his part, withdrew like a tide. Mary confided to a neighbor, Widow Hale, over elderberry wine, who speaks to the walls now Jer does, says the cave has voices, old ones, hungry for tribute. The wagons came more frequent, their drivers reeking of river mud and desperation, paid in coin that gleamed unnaturally. Rumors slithered through the hollows Jeremiah had struck silver vein, or worse. Unearthed relics from mound builder tombs, cursed artifacts that demanded blood to quiet their unrest. Preacher Thorne thumped his pulpit. Covet not thy brother's cavern, lest it swallow thee whole. The breaking point crested on September 28th. Solomon, stake in hand, confronted the dam at dawn's grey hem. Jeremiah emerged from the mist, shotgun cradled like a child. It's mine by right, Sol. The spring chooses its path. Words escalated to shoves, then to blows. Fists glancing off ribs, drawing first blood. Solomon retreated, lips split, but the wound festered inward. That night, he sharpened his hunting knife on a whetstone that sang like a banshee's keen. October 7th dawned under a sky of hammered lead. Solomon kissed Rebekah farewell, his lips lingering on her temple, tasting salt of unspoken dread. "I'll end it today," he murmured, Bible tucked in his coat, blade sheathed at his belt. He descended the ridge, lantern unlit in the gloom, toward the valley where his brother delved in darkness. The creek whispered warnings, but he pressed on, the cave's maw yawning wider with each step. What passed in those hours? The journals of Dr. Burnett, penned in a hand steady as his scalpel, offer fragments. A parishioner reporting Solomon's wild rant at the general store. "Me brother's in league with the pit." And Mary Kincaid's pale face at market, basket trembling with unseen weight. The hollow held its breath, the oaks creaking as if in anticipation. By dusk, Solomon had not returned. Rebekah lit the lamps early, her children clustering like chicks to her skirts. The twins bickered over a corn-husk doll. Esther dozed in her cradle's sway. Outside the wind rose, carrying the faint, acrid whiff of smoke from the valley below. Little did they know, the abomination had already claimed its first tribute. Dawn of October 11th broke reluctant, the sun a sullen eye peering through rags of cloud. Jacob Miller, a trapper whose life was measured in pelts and solitude, snared beaver along the ridge's flank. His traps clattered empty, game fled the drought's curse, and hunger gnawed sharper than cold. Cutting cross country towards Solomon's for a tin of salt pork, he crested the rise and froze, the world tilting like a drunkard stagger. The cabin stood serene, smoke curling lazy from the chimney, but the door yawned ajar, a black invitation. Miller's mule brayed unease, ears pinned flat. He approached, boots silent on needle-strewn path, rifle half raised. The air thickened, heavy with copper and void. The scent of slaughter veiled in domesticity. Inside, the tableau seized him, Rebekah at the trestle table, head bowed over mending, blood pooling like spilled ink beneath her chair. Her throat bore a seam precise as a tailor's stitch. No spray of arterial fury, just a clean release that wept slow and deliberate. The children. Oh, the children. Amos at his lessons, slate prop, chalk snapped mid-equation, his small throat mirroring his mother's, a crimson smile frozen in repose. Miriam by the hearth, hymnal open to amazing grace, her voice silenced mid-verse. The twins, Levi and Ruth, on the puncheon floor, limbs entwined as in sleep, their doll and whittled horse clutched eternal. Esther in her trundle, blanket tucked with maternal care, her tiny neck a delicate incision, breath stolen before it could form a cry. No struggle marred the scene, no overturned stool, no shattered crockery. They had been posed, arranged with the tenderness of a father tucking in his brood, or the mockery of something that mimicked love. Miller retched into the dooryard, bile burning his throat, then staggered to the smokehouse. There slumped Solomon back to the wall, amid hogsheads reeking of brine and brine's failure. His knife lay in his lap, Blade kissed clean save for hilt's gore, smeared grip, his own throat gaped, self-administered, eyes staring sightless at the rafters where hams dangled like gallows fruit. On the plank wall, etched with knife, Tippy, the abomination claims its due. Jeremiah, you have made me Cain. Miller fled, crashing through underbrush till he burst into Sheriff Hargrove's office in Jasper, 20 miles by crow flight, but a lifetime by foot. Hargrove, nursing a hangover from sour mash, paled as the tale spilled. Christ almighty, he muttered, mustache quivering. He roused his deputies, 3 raw youths, an old Tom Hale widow's man, and sent for Dr. Burnett, whose black bag held more than morphine and catgut. It cradled the war's ghosts too. The posse rode hard, hooves drumming dread into the earth. Burnett, atop his grey mare, felt the old surgeon's chill, the same hollow that gripped him at Shiloh, where limbs parted from torsos under sores whine. They reached the ridge by noon, the cabin's door still agape like a scream. Hargrove crossed the threshold first, hat in hand, and emerged green-gilled, vomiting into ferns. Lord of mercy, he choked. Burnett entered calm, clinical, throat severed lateral to carotid, no hesitation, blades withdrawn post, mortem to stem the flood. Ritual. He noted in his journal later, the word underlined thrice. No defensive wounds, no terror's disarray. As if they welcomed the blade, or were lulled to it. The letters, 7 in all, folded in Rebecca's apron, were Hargrove's grim prize. Penned in Solomon's blocky script, they unraveled a descent into abyss. The first, dated September 15th, accusations of water theft, pleas for brotherly amends. By the 28th, after the dam's brawl, I have seen your wagons jar under moon's blind eye. What do you haul into that devil's gullet? Not ore, but offerings. The final, October 6th, a fevered screed. The cave birthed it, an elder thing, scales slick as sin, eyes like drowned stars. You worship it, feed it our kin's blood. The war taught me slaughter, God demands I end the line. Forgive me, Rebecca. The abomination must starve. Hargrove's jaw set iron, fratricide born of moonshine and grudge. But Burnett, probing the smokehouse, found discrepancy, Solomon's body rigid in early rigor, death fresh as midnight. The letters suggested premeditation days old. Bodies would have stiffened, bloated by October's humid kiss. Something amiss, Burnett murmured, but posse nerves frayed. They wrapped the dead in oilcloth, lashed to mules like cordwood, and turned valley-ward. The descent was omen-laden. Crows wheeled overhead, their caws a derisive chorus. The creek ran red with autumn leaves, or so it seemed. Jeremiah's cabin hove into view at eventide, its roof a crown of flame. Smoke billowed acrid, flames gnawing beams with voracious glee. Posse shouts shattered the hush, buckets formed from creek to conflagration, but the fire fought fierce, as if fed by unseen bellows. From the blaze's heart stumbled figures, or what remained. Mary Kincaid, dragged clear by Hale's hook, lay blackened without, but within preserved. Throat slit mirror to Rebecca's, posed on her sewing rocker, needle in fabric as if interrupted mid-stitch. Josiah and Hannah beside, the boy with toy musket, girl in cradle, incisions identical, blood-sheeted neat. No burns char on vitals killed prior, then pyre lit to conceal. Then a groan from tree-line, Jeremiah our gut, wounded, shirt sodden crimson. He collapsed into Hargrove's arms, eyes rolling white. Hunting dawn, returned to this. Delirium poured tales of caves delve, silver lode struck but cursed. Veins pulsing not metal but malice. Solomon came last night, raving of abominations. Fought blade, fled to woods, his wound self-inflicted. Defensive, Burnett stitched hasty, morphine dulling pain but not the madness. Under guard in Jasper's calaboose, Jeremiah lingered. October 12th, ravings of caves hunger, wagons hauling, the changed. Men from river towns, debtors lured by promise emerging not whole. They sing in tongues older than Babel. He gasped, fingers clawing air. Burnett noted anatomical precision in wounds, war surgeon's touch. Both brothers scouted for union, learned field dressings that could unmake as well as mend. October 14th, posse returned to valley, cave's mouth a scar under moon. Blasting powder traces, Jeremiah's doing. Inside, lanterns revealed chambers vast as cathedrals, walls etched with spirals not of chisel, but claw, sulphur stench choked, floor dusted white, flecked crimson. Crates splintered tools, lanterns, vials of quicksilver. Deeper, a chamber where light died, altar of hewn stone stained dark, chains rusted in rings. Whispers, echoes of wind, or something stirring in depths. Hargrove sealed it hasty, powder keg thunder burying secrets. But Jeremiah's final night, October 16th, under lantern's vigil he begged paper, scribbled elder oak, root's heart, the truth sleeps. Dawn found him cold, laudum vial empty. Suicide or mercy administered. His eyes stared accusing, lips curled in unfinished curse. The bodies, 14 in toll, were laid in potter's field, graves shallow under frost, kissed sod. Solomon's vanished wrote oilcloth empty, mule's burden lightened by grave robbers or ghosts. Whispers flew cave claimed it or Jeremiah's men. October 18th, White Oak Church, 12 men convened. Hargrove, Burnett Thorne, Judge Patterson, farmers kin to Kincaid's. Lanterns guttered, air thick with pipe smoke and piety's pretense. Thorne led prayer, voice quavering, Lord, forgive our concealment, for truth would unmake us. They drafted the lie, accidental fires, chimney faults in dry homes. Records forged, oaths sworn on blood, pricked thumbs. The world's eyes stray here scarce. Patterson intuned, let this die with us. And so it did. For 96 years, the hollows healed over. Vines choking ruins, oaks guarding graves. But the elder oak endured, its mound suspicious, roots thirsting for what lay buried. To grasp the Kincaid horror, we must burrow deeper than blade or bone. Into the strata of the Ozarks themselves, where history layers like sediment, each stratum veined with folklore's dark ore. The Ozarks, a plateau fractured by Yunes, 47,000 square miles straddling Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, its name from the French Ozarks to the bends, evoking rivers that twist like serpents evading capture. By 1871, this was no pristine Eden, but a palimpsest scarred by conquest. Pre-contact, the land thrummed with Osage and Quapaw voices, their mound cities, sprawling Cahokia's echo, raising earthworks that whispered of star-aligned rituals. The 1830s Trail of Tears rent this fabric, 60,000 indigenous souls herded west, 4,000 graves dotting the path, their keening absorbed into the hollows. White settlers like Obadiah flooded the void, lured by the 1820 Indian Removal Act's land lotteries, 160-acre parcels for 1.5, a bargain sealed in blood. Madison County, formed 1841, was Frontier Raw's 1860 census tallied 3,000 souls half illiterate. Faith splintered between Baptist revivals and Methodist circuits thundering against popery and profanity. The Civil War ravaged this isolation. Arkansas seceded 1861, but the Ozarks splintered, Unionist hillfolk clashing with Confederate bushwhackers in guerrilla hell. Pea Ridge, 1862, spilled 500 lives in these very ridges, Solomon and Jeremiah scouting for Curtis's bluecoats, learning to slit throats silent under moonless skies. Post-Appomattox, the region staggered, 40% of able men dead or maimed, farms fallow, railroads nascent. The 1870 census pegged Madison's population at 4,500, economy tethered to subsistence, corn, hogs, moonshine. Droughts like 70s, a divine scourge, crop yields halved, starvation's shadow long. Into this brewed the Kincaid's cauldron. Obadiah's grant, 1837, typified squatter ethos, pre-emption rights, letting settlers claim improved land, fencing feuds common as cornbread, water wars, inescapable in karst terrain, where sinkholes swallow streams, springs sacred to Osage lore as portals to the underworld. Jeremiah's Cave of Oak spelunkers tales the Ozarks boast 500 documented caverns, some plumbed 100 miles, folklore rich with devil's dens. Blanchard Springs, where Cherokee hid gold from DeSoto, or Devil's Den, haunted by whispers of lost conquistadors. Folklore amplifies the eerie. The hates of Ozark yarn spinners, restless spirits bound to blighted ground, mirror the massacre's haunt. Vance Randolph's 1940s collections in Ozark magic and folklore catalog, feeble-minded, kin feuding to extinction, caves as fairy doors, where changelings emerge, the Kincaid's ritual slits, echo scalping knives of creek wars or mound builder sacrifices, bones arranged for rebirth. Burnett's journals, unearthed 1967, align with period texts. The Scalpel and the Sword, 1865, details Union surgeons' precision, laudanum's allure as God's own opium. overdose common in despair's grip. The cover-up, quintessential Ozark reticence. Post-war, bloody Madison simmered with feuds. The Tut-Everett War, 1870s, claiming dozens in vendetta spirals. Communities policed internally, circuit judges rode thrice yearly, leaving vigilante justice to thrive. White Oak Church's oath evokes Masonic pacts or clan oaths. Resurgent post-Reconstruction. Silence as shield against Yankee scrutiny or internal purge. The 1871 decision protected not just reputation but Kincaid cousins scattered, their bloodline tainted. Blending fact and legend. Hawthorne's 1967 dig under Elder Oak yielded 23 skeletons, disarticulated, dated via dendrochronology to 1860-71, evoking serial atrocities akin to the Bender family. Kansas 1870s, 11 victims cannibalized. Cave blasting, echoes 1880s mining booms, but powder traces suggest sabotage. Osage lore warns of water panthers, cave-dwelling spirits demanding tribute, perhaps inspiring Jeremiah's Abomination, a folk psychosis born of isolation. War trauma and mescaline, laced peyote from trader roots. Culturally, the Massacre taps universal dread, the frontier's thin veneer over savagery. As Randolph noted, Ozarkers believe the hills hold older gods, mounds as devil's pillows, birthing haints. The drought, biblical, like Elijah's famine, twisting kin to Cain. Educational yet eerie. Visit Blanchard today, feel the chill of 20-degree caverns. Hear echoes that sound like pleas. The Ozarks teach, history is not linear but cyclical, grudges recirculating like mist. In this context, the Kincaids are no anomaly, but emblem sons of displacement, haunted by war's unburied dead, delving too deep into Earth's memory. The hollows still hold their breath, waiting for the next fool to disturb the slumbering. Now, as the lantern gutters low, let us dissect not flesh, but the festering heart of the Kincaid legacy. What lurks beneath the blades and bones? Not mere fratricide, but a tapestry of symbols, woven from the threads of human frailty, ambition's poison, isolation's madness, the eternal dance with the abyss. The Ozark Massacre, stripped to sinew, mirrors our collective shadow, the fear that kinship is but a fragile dam against the flood of monstrosity. Consider the cave, Jeremiah's profane sanctum, as primal archetype. In Jungian depths, it is the unconscious yawning maw of the Ed, where repressed urges gestate. Jeremiah, the delving brother, embodies the Promethean thief, stealing fire from Earth's belly, only to birth not light but Leviathan. His wagons, laden with the changed, evoke alchemical transmutation gone awry, men lured as debtors, emerging as homunculi, souls bartered for silver's gleam. Symbolically, the cave hungers as the devouring mother, Osage water panther incarnate, demanding tribute in blood to sate its infertility. Draught without amplifies draught within. Jeremiah's delving a futile quest to mine meaning from void, unearthing instead the war's buried atrocities. Scouting raids where he and Solomon left villages smoldering, widows keening like the whip, poor Will. Solomon, the ridge dweller, counters as the superego's sentinel rigid, patrolling boundaries, his blade the law's extension. Yet his ritual killings betray inversion. Protector becomes executioner, arranging bodies not in chaos, but cosmos. Family posed domestic, a mockery of Eden's fall. The throat slit lateral, not savagery, but sacrifice, libation to avert greater doom. Echoing Aztec Zyptotec or mound builder heart extractions. His letters, scripture warped, reveal messianic delusion. Cain's mark self-imposed, fratricide as holy purge. Psychologically, post-traumatic echo wars, dissociative freeze, where killing kin reenacts battlefield detachment. The surgeon's hand, Elsbonnet's precision noted, severing self from horror. Thematically, the massacre probes universal fears, blood's betrayal. Kinship, that supposed bulwark, fractures under scarcity. Draught as metaphor for existential want, water diverted as trust eroded. In cultural trauma's lens, its reconstruction scar, Union brothers, returning to a South unhealed, grudges suppurating like gangrene. The cover up at White Oak, collective amnesia. Froude's screen memory, 12 men oath-bound, erasing not event, but implication. If Kincaids delve damnation, so might we. This conspiracy haunts modern psyches. Think Milgram's obedience, or Zimbardo's prison. Ordinary folk scripting atrocities silence its shroud. Deeper it taps the uncanny familiar turned profane. bodies arranged, as if for supper, evokes dollhouse dioramas, childhood innocence inverted to uncanny valley, Freud's unheimlich, where home becomes tomb. The elder oak mound guardian symbolizes Yggdrasil's root world, buried remains a twin three souls, a necropolis, suggesting serial sacrament, Kincaid's as inadvertent cult, cave as charnel chapel. Hawthorne's dig, Pandora's exhumation, truths unearthed only to torment. Psychologically, war's legacy looms, Solomon and Jeremiah's scouting forged killer's detachment, laudanum a crutch for souls numbed. Jeremiah's suicide, not escape but apotheosis, joining the cave's choir. Thematically, it indicts human nature's dual helix, creation, destruction, the artist, Jeremiah's delve and destroyer, Solomon's purge, twin faces of ambition, universal.
Yes.
Echoes Cain and Abel, Romulus slaying Remus, modernity's sibling rivalries in boardrooms or ballots, all veiling the beast. Ominously, it warns isolation breeds idols, Ozark hollows, cut off, amplify, whispers to roars. Today's echo chambers, where online, caves, birth conspiracies. The massacre lingers as caution dig too deep, and earth digs back, unearthing not gold, but the grave, clay of our making. We are all Kincaids, patrolling ridges against brothers' shadows, blades honed on regret's whetstone. The throne of nightmares is no distant seat. It's the mirror's edge, where we glimpse the abomination staring back. And so, the hollows fall silent once more, the Kincaid blood long leached into the clay, their names faded from ledgers but etched eternal in the ledger of the damned. 14 souls, or 23, if Hawthorne's bones whisper true, claimed by a feud that began with a trickle of water and ended in a torrent of crimson. Solomon's blade, Jeremiah's cave, the 12 men's oath threads in a noose we all wear, tightening with each unspoken grudge. Reflect, wanderers, as the whip-paw Will's call fades to echo. The Ozarks teach a bitter psalm, what we bury rises, roots delving deeper than we dare. The elder oak still stands, its mound undisturbed save by fox and phantom, the cave's mouth sealed but breathing. Sulphur sighs on still nights, lights flickering in dreams of the unwary. Is it madness that drove the brothers, or something older, stirred by war's plough? Did Jeremiah worship a god of depths, or merely mine his own unraveling? And Solomon, savior or slayer, his final act a mercy veiled in massacre? The community chose forgetting, but memory is a stubborn weed, sprouting in journals warped by flood, in excavations that claw truth from turf. Evelyn Hawthorne, peering into Burnett's ink-stained confessions, glimpsed not closure, but a chasm, how fragile our veils, how near the abyss. Today hikers shun the ridge, locals cross at mentions of Kincaid, the air there, wrong, thick with the scent of wet stone and regret. As you douse your lantern this night, feel the chill at your nape, the blade's kiss, precise and promising. Are you Solomon, patrolling shadows of betrayal? Jeremiah delving hungers you cannot name, or one of the 12, oath bound to silence, your tongue leaden with lies? The abomination claims its due, my dears, not in caves or hollows, but in the quiet chambers of the heart, where kin turns kin to ghost. Sleep light, for the Ozarks remember, and in your dreams listen, the creek murmurs names, the oak's creak accusations, the cave hungers still. Until next we convene on the throne of nightmares, may your shadows stay friendly, and your brothers faithful.